The problem of wildlife trafficking is one that is global. Over the past decade, the number of elephants killed has doubled. As many as 35,000 elephants were slaughtered by poachers last year alone. As a result, the number of African forest elephants, which are especially at risk, has declined by more than 75% since 2002. Elephant poaching and ivory trafficking have once again reached a crisis point. We need a new impetus and a new ethos to stop the killing, stop the trafficking, and stop the demand.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice Chair Clinton Foundation Chelsea Clinton and former Secretary of State of the United States Hillary Rodham Clinton.
As you heard in the video, we are now confronting the possibility of a world without elephants. As I heard from rangers and government officials this summer in Africa, ivory trafficking is not only threatening elephants, it's threatening their countries, and it's a threat to our security as well. Today, ivory trafficking is a massive, violent, criminal enterprise. In the last decade, more than 1,000 rangers have lost their lives while protecting elephants and other wildlife. Poachers with helicopters, automatic weapons, and this week, cyanide in Zimbabwe, not only overwhelm local authorities, they also threaten the tourist economy. Additionally, traffickers exploit the same global networks that carry arms, drugs, and forced laborers to send their illegal ivory to markets in Asia and all over the world. Armed groups like the Janjaweed, Al-Shabaab, and the Lord's Resistance Army use the ivory trade to fund their nefarious activities across Africa and across the world. As my mother said in the video, we are indeed at a crisis point. For my parents and for me, addressing this challenge is a personal commitment as well as a policy concern. At the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, we are determined to be part of the solution, and we are grateful that CGI has been able to bring together governments, NGOs, and the private sector to be part of overcoming this challenge, exactly what we mean when we talk about mobilizing for impact. As I always am, I am delighted and honored to introduce my mom to tell you a little bit more about the commitment we are all making here today.
Thanks so much, Chelsea, and thanks for really making this such a priority for our family. Through her reporting at NBC News, she helped to shine a spotlight on the crisis of elephant poaching and ivory trafficking. And this summer, as you saw in the video, led a Clinton Foundation delegation to visit conservation experts in Tanzania and Zambia and see firsthand some of the innovative work being done on the ground to protect Africa's elephants. Unless the killing stops, African forest elephants are expected to be extinct within 10 years. I can't even grasp what a great disaster this is, ecologically, but also for everyone who shares this planet, to lose a magnificent creature like the elephant, the African forest elephant, seems like such a rebuke to our own values. And I hope that we can act out of concern for elephants, but also out of concern for the security challenges that the poachers are causing for our friends in Africa and beyond. There is growing evidence that the terrorist groups stalking Africa, including al-Shabaab with its horrific attack on the mall in Nairobi, fund their terrorist activities to a great extent from ivory trafficking. So this is not just about elephants. It is about human beings, about governments trying to control their own territory, trying to keep their people safe, as well as protect their cultural and environmental heritage. As Secretary of State, I heard from many African leaders who were concerned about their tourism, about the toll this was taking on the livelihoods of their citizens, and also about the growing security threats. This is a perfect commitment for CGI because CGI can offer a platform for convening and action. So together with a broad coalition of conservation, NGOs, and private sector partners, we are supporting a commitment led by the African range states to stop the killing, stop the trafficking, and stop the demand. Our government partners are urging that we declare or restate national moratoria on all commercial exports, imports, and domestic sales, and purchases of tusks and ivory products until wildlife elephant populations are no longer threatened by poaching. The NGO and private sector partners will support this call and work together to scale up on-the-ground enforcement and raise public awareness in consumer countries about the hidden, terrible costs of ivory. In a moment, I will invite our African leaders to come forward on the stage, and also the leaders of our NGO partners. It is important for us to recognize all the supporters of this very significant effort today. I want to recognize Dr. Ian Douglas Hamilton and Dame Jane Goodall. They are leading experts in this field with decades between them of on-the-ground experience. I'm also pleased that we have representatives of the Obama administration, and I'm deeply grateful to the President for his executive order. With us, Carrie Ann Jones, the Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs in the State Department, Letty Beelin, Counselor to the Deputy Secretary of the Interior, Bob Dreyer, Acting Assistant Attorney General of the Environment and Natural Resources Division at the Department of Justice, and former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, Judith McHale, chosen by President Obama to chair the advisory council that has been set up on wildlife trafficking. And Judith comes to this with relevant experience, having been at the Discovery Channel when the first crisis in elephant populations dawned in the 1980s, and producing a really impactful movie, Blood Ivory, that changed the way people around the world looked at this issue. Now, in addition to our representatives from Africa, whom I will introduce in a moment, we also have representatives from Australia, China, Japan, Korea, Mongolia, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. They represent countries that are the biggest markets for illegal ivory. So their presence here today is especially encouraging. And I thank them and their governments for working with the African heads of state and governments, along with the conservation groups, to begin to address this crisis. Now, you will hear in a moment from the President of Uganda, His Excellency President Museveni. He is accompanied by the President of Burkina Faso, His Excellency President Compaoré, along with the President of the Gabonese Republic, His Excellency Bongo Ondimba, along with, as well, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Her Excellency Joyce Banda, the President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, His Excellency President Ouattara, the President of Tanzania, His Excellency President Kikwete. Accompanying the presidents of these very important African countries to this mission is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Namibia, the Minister of the Environment, Wildlife, and Tourism of the Republic of Botswana, the Minister of Commerce, Trade, and Industry of the Republic of Zambia, and also representatives from Kenya and Liberia and South Sudan were not able to join, but we appreciate their support as well. Following President Museveni's remarks, we will hear from one of the leaders of the conservation movement with whom we have been working, Dr. Christian Samper of the Wildlife Conservation Society, who will be representing our NGO partners. I want especially to applaud all of our partners because, number one, for organizations like our conservation organizations to come together, to work together, is not easy. They're all very busy. They all have their own programs to run and worry about. And we have been thrilled at how this group of internationally renowned conservation groups have come together on behalf of this mission. Similarly, our African friends, they all have serious problems of all sorts in their own countries, but they recognize the importance of this issue, and they too have come together. So please join me in welcoming all of our friends from Africa and the NGO community who will be joining us on stage, led by the President of Uganda, President Museveni.
We, the concurring African range states, urge range, transit, and consumer countries to declare or restate national moratoria on all commercial imports, exports, and domestic sales and purchases of tusks and ivory products until wild elephant populations are no longer threatened by poaching. I thank you very much. I take that to mean approval of this. On behalf of the African nations in attendance, I invite the commitment makers of the Partnership to Save African Elephants to stage and the director of the Wildlife Conservation Society to make a brief announcement about their effort. I thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. Today's announcement is a culmination of several actions taken by you, and they mark a turning point on saving Africa's elephants. On behalf of all the NGO partners involved in this initiative, it is a privilege for the Wildlife Conservation Society to be a part of this moment in time for elephants, as we move beyond statistics about extinction to the solutions for Africa's elephants and people. We will not be the generation that allowed for the extinction of the magnificent African elephant. I am proud to announce today that the Wildlife Conservation Society and all of our partners here commit to providing $80 million over the next 3 years to protect elephant populations by stopping the killing, stopping the trafficking of ivory, and stopping the demand of ivory across the world. To stop the killing, we will make targeted investments in the employment and training of anti-poaching enforcement officers and park rangers, and we need to have them to take on the well-armed criminals who are killing off the elephants and sparking the violence for local communities. To stop the trafficking, we will support governments in identifying and implementing policies to combat trafficking of ivory, such as international moratoria of ivory products that was just mentioned by the President. And to stop the demand, we'll be establishing partnerships with governments and key stakeholders in ivory consumer countries, and we plan to launch public awareness campaigns detailing the link between the purchase of ivory and the elephant poaching crisis in Africa. These campaigns and other strategies will increase the understanding of the legal ramifications of illegally trading ivory and ultimately aim to change perceptions and purchasing practices to decrease demand. I'm honored to be here with all of my colleagues who have been working in many cases for decades on this issue, and we're coming together to support the African presidents as we tackle this crisis. And now it is my honor to turn it over to President Bongo and Howard Buffett for an important announcement linked to this commitment. President Bongo.
My dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and if I may highlight your roles in bringing this issue to the attention of the Clinton Global Initiative members today, dear Hillary and Chelsea. I am particularly moved to be sharing this stage with you today as we shine a spotlight on the sinister issue of wildlife crime. Here we are focusing on the plight of the African elephant, and in a little more than an hour, Gabon and Germany will co-chair a high-level side event at the UN on wildlife crime. In the last decade, we have lost 75 of all of Africa's forest elephants. This crisis is almost as severe in the savannas of East and Southern Africa. Our park rangers are engaged in a war against increasingly violent and well-armed gangs, battling not just for the survival of Africa's emblematic species, but for their own lives. This has gone beyond an environmental issue. It threatens the very stability of our countries and blocks our economic development. It is time for the global community to act decisively against this plague. In Gabon, we are urgently rewriting legislation to make ivory poaching a serious crime. We are investing in new recruits and training for our parks and wildlife departments. And we have sent our armed forces in the forest to reinforce our rangers. Last year, I burnt our entire stockpile of ivory to pass the message that there is no place in Gabon for the ivory trade and that my government has a policy of zero tolerance for wildlife crime. Today, on my instruction, the Gabonese National Parks Agency is reaching out to other parks and wildlife authorities across the continent with the aim of federating our wildlife experts and mounting an African environmental peacekeeping initiative. We are sending technical experts, equipment, and financial support to help wildlife staff in critical sites that are under threat, such as the renowned Zangasanga World Heritage Site in Central African Republic. We will be committing many millions of US dollars to this initiative in the coming years. It is with great pleasure that I can tell you that our initiative has received strong support around Africa, and that today we can announce that the Howard G. Buffett Foundation will make a financial contribution of $2 million over the next year to our African environmental force. Together, we can make a difference and save the African elephant. But we have to act decisively, and we have to act now. I thank you. Thank you.
Judging by the applause in the room, I think many of you are very excited and supportive of this initiative, and we would invite more individual partners to work with our African leaders and our NGOs to help fund the work that must be done to both end the poaching and the killing, but also to work with us to help communities get more support in their areas for livelihoods and other kinds of economic development so that they can be the first line of defense against the slaughter of elephants. So please work with CGI as we continue to support the very courageous and strong stand of African leaders themselves. We will also be working with our Asian counterparts on stopping the demand. There's a lot of information that needs to be conveyed so people have a clear idea of what the ivory means to the African elephant population. We have done some preliminary research, and many people in Asia don't understand that it's not like losing a tooth. You have to kill the elephant to get the tusk. So we have to do a better job, which we will do working with our Asian partners and our NGO partners to support our African leaders as they take the actions that both you've heard from the President of Uganda, the President of the Gabonese Republic, they are prepared to do. So again, those of you who care about this issue, wildlife conservation, stopping poaching, please let CGI know so that we can have your additional support, as we just heard from the Howard Buffett Foundation, for individual leaders as they take these very important actions. Thank you.